In 2021, I had two PV215 tops. These are trap boxes with 215 woofers and a horn. And then I had two single 18 QSC subs. This entire system was passive. I had an amp rack, I had a DBX processor, and the system sounded actually really good. This was until one year I did a metal fest locally here in town, and that system definitely reached its limit. This was when I knew it was time I needed an upgrade. The search began for the perfect new sound system for me, and I knew I should probably go with some sort of line array. I looked at QSC and JBL and whatever else was out there until I stumbled upon this company called RCF. As soon as I saw the HDL6s at the price point of $1,500, which in the grand scheme of things is pretty low for line arrays, I knew I had to look more into them. Now, if you're like me and you're scouring YouTube and all other things to find more information and opinions and reviews on these boxes, I couldn't really find very much, so I hope this video can be helpful to you if you are looking at the HDL6s. Before I share with you my experience and my opinion on these boxes, let me give you some insight on what I was looking for in a new system, and what better place to do that than outside in the freezing cold when it's 25 degrees out in Wisconsin. Why am I doing this? It really breaks down to three main things that I wanted in a new sound system for me. My number one priority was obviously sound quality, and along with that is also the coverage. Most trap boxes are like 60 to 70 degrees when you're talking about their horizontal splay angle. A lot of line arrays have a much wider splay angle, and the RCF HDL6s have a 100-degree coverage. Number two for me is portability. The PVs that I had before were big and heavy and stupid, and they didn't have wheels on them or any way to get them around. And these HDL6s are only 30 pounds a piece. So like I said before, one of the things that I was looking for in my new system was portability. Now, these boxes are only 30 pounds, which is great. I mean, you can see just how small they are in comparison to me and my van here. This makes it easy to bring these along with me just about any way and anywhere. I mean, I've taken these in the back seat of my car before, all the way up to obviously this van and my trailer. A lot of times I work alone or with one other person, so I knew a sound system for me had to be portable and manageable to set up and tear down by myself. Along with being smaller and more portable and very lightweight, there's also a bunch of rigging options you can have with these HDL6s. Obviously it's a line array, so you can fly them, but 95% of the time the way that I use them is with the pole mount. You can either get the lightweight pole mounts or you can get the full-on fly bars like I did, and these actually come with not only the fly bar piece itself that you would rig from a lift tower or rigging system, but it also comes with this pole mount that you can mount right on the bottom. The HDL6s just have a lot of ways you can set them up, which is something that I definitely was looking for. Factor number three for me was price and scalability. Obviously, when you're upgrading and buying new things, you're considering the price, and I'm also considering, will I ever grow out of it? The best part about a line array is if you need more sound, you can just buy more. You don't have to go switching the entire system to get more SPL, more sound output out of the system. I can also scale these down, so if I'm bringing sound to a smaller place like a bar, I can bring 4 to 6 of these instead of all 8 or more that I have in the future. Speaking of setting these things up, the other benefit of powered line arrays like the HDL6 is that a lot of them are linkable. You can see here on the back we have a power con in and out, as well as a signal in and out. Of course, before you take any of my experiences as fact, do your own tests, do your own research, and do things at your own risk when it comes to power and current consumption. With that being said, I've put 8 of these boxes on one single 20 amp circuit with no issues. I've tested 4 boxes on one single 20 amp circuit with a meter, and at clip, I mean, I was driving the amps to the clip light. I was never drawing more than 10 amps. I have very often run this rig with 3 boxes per side, as well as my 9006 subwoofer from RCF, all also on a single 20 amp circuit. I'd be comfortable with putting up to 8 of these boxes on a single circuit myself. I did have that configuration of 8 boxes on one circuit last year at River City Slam, which is an event that I put on. You can check out the video on my channel if you want to see more about that. But I had 8 of these boxes on one circuit, and then I had a pair of DB Technologies Vio subs on another circuit. I would say on the side of caution, maybe 6 boxes per circuit is probably where you want to live. I'm sure others have other experiences and they can chime in the comments, but so far, those are the numbers that I've been getting. I've been able to run an entire system on one circuit or 2 circuits, depending on if I'm using all 8 of my boxes and my sub, but that's where I'm at. Since we're talking about rigging, I will say that the bar here on the back that sets your splay angles is a little less convenient than some other systems. Some other systems have a slot back here where you can just kind of pin the splay angle that you need with the boxes on the ground, and then when you go to fly them, they kind of like splay out like this and go to their set positions. This, you have to move the box physically to that angle and put the pin through both of the holes. So a little bit fidgety when you're setting these up, but that's really the only bad thing I have to say about the rigging with these boxes. Since they're pretty lightweight, it's pretty easy to do by yourself or with one other person when you're trying to lift up 2 boxes on a ground stack. If you're doing 1 box at a time by yourself, it's totally doable. For those of you looking to get this system, of course, something to note is the cost of the rigging on top of the cost of the boxes. This rigging bar here, as well as the fly bar portion, all comes as one package, and it costs about $1,000. And remember, you have 2 sides to your PA typically, so you're looking at $2 grand just for the rigging for these boxes. So that's something to note, especially if you're looking to get into line arrays in general. There's a lot of support gear like rigging and cables that you don't always take into account, so just make sure you're thinking about that as you're shopping for a new system, if you are. Now is the part of the story that you've probably been waiting for, which is where I talk about the sound of these boxes. Obviously, it's going to be impossible for me to give you a real representation of how these sound. At the beginning of my RCF journey, I only got 4 boxes. That's only 2 per side, and I would definitely recommend that be the bare minimum number of boxes you get. If you can only afford 1 per side, it's really not worth it, especially if you're gonna do anything with bands. If you're just using them for front fills or you have a bigger array already, they'll do awesome for that, or maybe for like a cocktail hour, but at that point you might as well just put a K12 or some other small powered speaker on a tripod and call it a day. Line arrays are designed to be line arrays. You can't just use 1 or even 2 of them and have like a real representation of what they're supposed to do. From my experience, when I only had 2 boxes, they sounded really clear in the top end. I noticed a huge bump in definition and just SPL that I could put out compared to my PV rig. The big thing that was missing though was the low mids. And when we're talking about drums, like I'm a drummer and I mix drums and it's probably one of my favorite things to mix, I was missing that oomph, that like punch, that 200 hertz, 300, like that snare body. I could not for the life of me get a good snare sound with these things with only having 2 per side. Toms sounded pretty awesome. This was a metal show I'm referencing, but the toms sounded pretty awesome. The kick sounded fine, but anything that needed that low mid, like especially like I said, the snare drum, just I couldn't get it. And then when we're talking about guitars and things that just need to have like a well-rounded mid-range, I just couldn't get that out of just 2 boxes per side. So that is a huge point to keep in mind if you're gonna get these for bands. I would recommend a bare minimum of 3 boxes per side for bands, rock, metal, country, any of that stuff. You need to have at least 3 boxes per side to get the full range capabilities of these things. Some of you out there watching can chime in the comments with your experience of having more of these things. When I went to 4 per side for the River City Slam Festival I had last year, this PA really started to rip. Most of the time I can get away with 3 boxes when you're talking about in a bar or even like smaller venues, smaller outdoor things, but you really need more than even 3 boxes per side to get the meat out of this box. Remember, this is a small box. We're talking about 6.5-inch woofers and a polymer cabinet. It's not gonna have that warmth and that sort of like rigidity that you get out of a wood cabinet, so that's something to keep in mind. They do sound really good, it's just not quite the same, and it's just a different flavor. Another thing I noticed about these boxes is they are really bright. The upper mids, especially in the 3 to 4K range, is like very, very hot. The high end is very crispy, but sometimes a little bit too crispy. Remember that no PA is flat, and this PA is definitely on the brighter side. So like I said, just kind of taming those highs and upper mids as needed is kind of something I found to be a trend with these boxes. My first impression of these, however, with a vocal, just a standard 58 through the PA, was eye-opening. Vocals were so clear, it was almost like I didn't need to EQ them at all. It was kind of crazy going from some of the other PAs that I've worked on to this. It was just kind of mind-blowing how good the PA sounded, how much detail was coming from that microphone. The other notable first impression I had with these was also the loudness. These things are stupid loud. I set these up for the first time and I could not believe how much sound comes out of these little boxes. They're 1400 watts a piece, which may not seem like a massive jump from like a K12, which is 1000 watts or whatever else you're coming from, but my God, these things are stupid loud. When you get them anywhere close to their limit, like I don't even think I've ever hit limit on these during a show. It's kind of crazy how much headroom you have on these boxes. One thing that was kind of unclear in the manual was how high to run the volume knob on the back. There's like one single gain knob or amp knob, like volume, whatever it is. And there was nothing in the manual that says like where unity is, so I've just ran them wide open. Sometimes when I set these up and the audience is close by, I'll turn the bottom boxes down just a little bit so if people are standing right up close to them, they're not getting obliterated. But like I said, these things are screaming loud and they have just a ton of power. They have a ton of throw. I've done some outdoor gigs where they'll easily throw 75 yards. 100 yards is kind of pushing it. I also wasn't flying them at the time, so I'm sure if they were flown in the air, 100 yards would probably be doable as well, depending on how high you can get them. Overall, my impressions of these are just all positive. I mean, like I said, no PA is perfect. These aren't supposed to be flat. No PA is supposed to be perfectly flat. I just tune it to the application that I need. If it's a show like a metal band and I got a big room or I'm outdoors, I'll keep most of that high end in where I can get that definition out of the speakers. Drums sound crazy punchy, cymbals are crispy, vocals are cutting. I mean, the rig really rips when you need it to. And then in other situations like country bands and things that don't need to be quite as aggressive, you can tame that top end, the upper mids, dial the boxes in how you like, and make it work for what you need. So this begs the question of, would I buy these again if I was starting from zero? I think that I would. I may consider their counterpart, the HDL6. I've heard that box is a little bit more meaty and warm in the mids, a little bit less harsh in the upper mids and highs. But those boxes are like $1,000 more to get networkability and a different sound. So like, I guess for me, that's maybe not worth it. I've also considered going to the HDL10s or the 20s, and I think those are older boxes, I'm not sure. I did also consider the JBL 900 series options, but again, I don't really need the network capability, and at the time my budget wasn't there, and honestly it still isn't there to be spending 10 grand, 20 grand on a new PA. So with that being said, and all pun intended, these things give quite the bang for your buck. If I had to give you a scale or a range of how many boxes you need based on what you're doing, I would say 2 per side minimum, period. Like, don't buy this system unless you can buy 4 boxes. That's gonna get you through like acoustic duos, super small gigs, not heavy rock bands. You could probably do some jazz, some light stuff on those. 3 boxes per side minimum if you're gonna do any sort of rock, country, and if you're trying to cover any more than like 100 people, 200 people and really get a full sound. If you can fly these 4 boxes per side, would cover probably 500, maybe 1,000 people, again, depending on the genre, depending on how big the venue space is, or if you're outdoors or indoors. Anything more than 1,000 people, you're definitely gonna want 6, 7, 8 boxes per side and up. If you wanna see these things in action, go ahead and check out this gig vlog right up here. I hope you got something out of this video. I had fun making it. I only froze a little bit. I look forward to making more videos for you in the future. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them down in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.